Hi, Jen. So thanks for agreeing to speak to me today for Global Entrepreneurship Week. It's really, really great to connect with you. So I've just for your context, we've been doing a series of interviews this week with global entrepreneurs. So I've done some interviews with people in America, got some interviews coming up with people in Dubai, in Vietnam. So truly global reach.
Yeah.
I'm actually speaking to you today from Scotland, and
Yes.
you're also in Scotland. So maybe not such a global conversation as some of the other ones, but actually just really interested to speak to you today because you have what I would consider an organization with a global reach. So yeah, I'm hoping what we can do today is just have a conversation that's going to be useful for some of the students that are working, that are studying in colleges and studying at colleges in Scotland and are perhaps looking at business or entrepreneurship as a next step for them. So I just wanted to just ask you if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what your business does as a start.
So I started ISSOS when I was 25 years old. There's multiple stories as to why I started it, but effectively I wanted to create a safe place for people to learn and grow, and that is our mission statement. I would say the thing that now gets me out of bed in the morning is the fact that we put kids together under one roof from over 80 nationalities, and the amount of social barriers that sort of breaks down is really, really powerful. Our business is international summer schools for 13 to 18-year-olds. They come from over 80 nationalities, so literally every country in the world effectively. They come together for 3 weeks for a residential program where they do a selection of academic programs and electives in the afternoon. We also do things like we split them into clans and they compete over 3 weeks. We have a variety of evening programs. We have really cool Saturday trips depending on what campus the students select. So we run at St Andrews University, Cambridge University and Yale University in the States. So at Yale, for example, you get to go to New York and Boston. If you go to St Andrews, you get to go to Edinburgh and Glasgow. So although if you're from Scotland, Edinburgh and Glasgow don't sound that exciting. If you're from, Berlin or you're from China, they're pretty cool cities. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I just mentioned a key thing I'm going to pick up on there straight away is that you mentioned you started this business when you were 25. So a similar age to probably quite a lot of the students that are in college right now. What was, I suppose, quite a young age to start a business. I'm really interested in kind of what your motivation was for starting that business when you were 25. Why did you perhaps choose to start a business rather than going into employment? I know you said you wanted to create that safe space for young people.
Yeah. I mean, there was supposed that there was two sides to it. One was I kind of always wanted to start a business. My dad was a serial entrepreneur or habitual entrepreneur, depending on which one you want to call him. So there was never any fear around it. It was always something that was discussed over the dining room table. When I was about 17, my dad lost everything, business, house, cars, everything, which was a really difficult situation to go through, but actually probably one of my greatest learnings, sort of because I'd never been told we couldn't afford anything and we'd never struggled in any way. So actually suddenly I was kind of propelled into this very different situation, but it gave me a bit of a sort of determination. It made me realize that actually running your own business gives you a certain freedom and a certain choice that had been taken away when my dad lost everything. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is I went to work in summer camps when I went to university, and I absolutely loved it. And there was something really special about them. There was something really different about them. And I kind of thought, well, if this is what you want to do with your life, then you have to do it yourself because they don't exist in Scotland or in the UK. So go and do it. So it was really a case of I found something that I absolutely love, that I desperately want to do. And the only way to do that is to set up my own business. And that didn't present any kind of fear for me. And also there was that need of basically I'm 25, I've just graduated, I've got no money, so what we're going to do. So
Yeah.
and actually my dad losing everything was probably one of the best things, because I didn't have any money to start the business, so it was very much, this has to make money, because if it doesn't, how do you pay the bank back? So which was good. That's definitely not a negative thing. It's good to your business needs to make money. So if you've got that kind of impetus of, right, I've got to pay someone back, let's go. Okay. It kind of works quite well. But at 25, going into a bank saying, I want to set up a business, and they say, and what experience do you have? And you go, I've got a history degree. It's a bit daunting, but you find someone eventually that will just take a bit of a risk.
Okay. So
which effectively happened.
Okay, so actually, so kind of, you unpacked a lot of things there. So you're talking about how you had these two drivers for it. One of them was the situation that you found yourself in. Yeah. But then the other one is, and having that background in your family meant that you weren't worried about it, which actually is probably a big barrier for a lot of the young people I work with, certainly. But the other side of it was that you knew what you wanted to be doing, and that being working in the summer camps, but that opportunity wasn't there. So it was either go and make that opportunity for yourself, or go and do something you don't like as much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally. And I think I certainly had that vision, if you like, of what I wanted to do. It certainly isn't the vision that I currently run, because had I thought that what I was going to do was going to be what it is today, I would have been so scared that there's no way I would have thought I could have possibly done it. So I think that's one of the interesting things when people say, how did you end up doing what you're doing today? I'm like, well, I didn't. I started far smaller, and it built up. Yeah. You don't start with the company that you currently have. And yeah, I think the fear factor being taken out of it was huge. But also at school, nobody ever talked about working for yourself at school. It was always like, so what are you going to get a job and do? Whereas my dad always used to get really annoyed with that. He'd be like, what about if you want to set up your own business? I'm like, yeah, he doesn't realize that not everybody wants to do that. Okay. But, I think it's got to be offered as more of a option. You don't have to set up, the Virgin Media Group. You can set up, a car washing business, or, a cake making business. It doesn't have to be this massive company that you sort of need to set up.
That's a really good point there, actually, that and entrepreneurship is quite often, I talk about this with the students when I'm delivering lessons on entrepreneurship. I often ask, name me a couple of entrepreneurs, and I get Richard Branson, I get Lord Sugar. No one ever talks about the person who opens the local newspaper shop at 5 a.m. every morning and is there till 11 o'clock. They never talk about the person that cuts their hair every week. Yeah. Well, every couple of weeks. They never think about the people, the small businesses that are there actually keeping their community going. Absolutely. So actually, I'm really glad that you touched on that bit. One thing I wanted to just ask, just focusing on that part when you did start the company, what would you say would have been the biggest challenge that you had when you decided, right, I'm going to start this? What was the hardest thing to get through?
I mean, a lot of people say finance, and I actually don't remember that being too onerous. I mean, it was. I went to about 10 banks, and of course they all were like, what, summer school? What is that? Why would anybody pay to send their child to a school over summer? But taking the finance part out of it, especially at 25, and maybe it's not an age thing, maybe it doesn't matter what age you are, other people's opinion and other people's attitude towards it. I don't know if it's a Scottish thing, but certainly when I was 25 and I said to my friends who had, just graduated from uni, it was all about getting experience and getting a job. I said, I'm going to set up my own company. I'm going to set up a summer school. And every single one of them, what do you know about setting up a summer school though, Jen? Like, do you not think maybe you should get a job and get some experience? An experience doing what? there is no summer schools in the UK. Like, where am I going? I've just worked for 4 years at summer camp. I think I kind of know something about it.
Yeah.
And I think there's this attitude of you've got to know everything before you do it. And actually the reality is, of anybody who's ever set up a company or any entrepreneur, is you basically wing it. And you still are, like, and I think that's just the story of life. Like, everybody's just kind of doing it, but you do something that you love, and you learn along the way.
Yeah.
And I think potentially one of the greatest things about being 25 and setting up a company is you are prepared to learn from everybody and everything. And I think that's one of the things I would always say is never give up on that sort of curiosity to learn. But I definitely think people's opinion was probably the hardest thing.
Okay.
Because, you know, now everybody will be like, oh, I always knew you would do really well. I'm like, really? Because see, when I wanted to set up when I was 25, you were all the people that were saying, go get experience.
Yeah.
My friends in America, when I told them, were all totally different. They were just like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's so cool. I'm so excited for you.
Interesting.
Very different attitudes.
Okay.
But I think people's opinions and people's attitude, everyone's got an opinion on the product that you've got. And they don't necessarily know anything about it. So I think definitely for me, it was definitely people's opinions, because you had to kind of block that out constantly. Even when I started, you know, we had 5 kids signed up for the summer school. People were like, at what point do you pull the plug? And I was like, I don't. This is going to happen. This will work. And
I've got the kids. I will have a summer school. Totally.
And, you know, it's like, I will run it with 5 if I have to. And I think that's the thing, that you've got to have this inherent belief and keep going. But definitely people's opinion was one of my hardest things, I think, to overcome.
Okay. And so, which is a really important point to make, because often you're told, share your ideas with people, get feedback. No one ever tells you how to deal with someone who maybe doesn't know what they're talking about and loves to give their opinion, because there are a lot of people like that in the world. No one. And also, actually, what do you then do once you've got the feedback? Do you take it on board? Do you do something with it, or do you take another step to evaluate that feedback yourself? And it sounds like you kind of you learned to do that bit of sifting out what that feedback is, whether it's useful to you or not.
Totally. And I think it's difficult, because if you are entrepreneurial and you've got an entrepreneurial mindset, you are a bit of a dreamer. So it's difficult to kind of go, am I totally dreaming and like on another plane from everybody else and just thinking it's all going to be great, or is something about what they're saying actually real? And I think there's definitely a happy medium, but I think if you have an idea that you genuinely believe in, then you've just got to sound that out and keep going.
Okay, cool. Right, so I want to actually go on to just talk a little bit more about with us talking in Global Entrepreneurship Week, actually your space within the globe, I suppose. So I know you've got a very large reach with ISSOS. I think you said 80 countries.
Yep, 80 nationalities.
80 nationalities coming to your summer schools, which are in 2 different countries. Yep. I was nearly naughty there, and said 3. So you got them in 2 different countries, kids coming from all over the world, teachers coming from all over the world. So could you just tell us a little bit more about the global reach of ISSOS, and maybe what you've done to try and get that global reach?
Yeah, so when we first started with one summer school in St Andrews, and I was having a conversation with my dad, who is an ex-insurance broker. So when he was marketing his company, it was very much like, you know, a very niche market. So he could pinpoint it to, you know, women aged 30 to 40 that live in Bearsden. Okay. Advertise, one newspaper, done. And he said to me, what's your market? And I said, the world. And he went, right, okay. And what's your demographic? I was like, parents. It's like, right, okay. And we knew they were sort of going to be upwardly mobile, a certain sort of financial sort of status. But at the time it was like, how do you market to, that's a huge market to sort of expose yourself to initially. Thankfully we've got the internet. If we didn't have the internet, I really struggled to know how we would communicate with that sort of wealth of people, because what we did was we set something up that didn't really have a market in the UK initially, because to try and explain to parents in the UK to give us part of their disposable income to take their son or daughter for 3 weeks to what is called a summer school is just not something that is in the psyche of UK people, or it wasn't at that time. So so marketing to effectively over 80 nationalities in itself is difficult, because you've got to go online, that's fine. But then what those 80 different nationalities want is very different. So, you know, a German parent wants facts and figures as to what their son and daughter is going to be doing at the summer school. An American parent wants pictures of nice smiley kids having fun. And, you know, there's a very different psyche per nationality as to how to market to them. So that was really interesting, and I really enjoyed that sort of aspect of it. But definitely the internet gave us a platform to be exposed to those many nationalities. And really, we've built a business that probably in the last, certainly in the first 8 years, we got to a point where 80% of our business was coming through repeat business, brothers and sisters of people who had come to us, and referral. And we built that up very specifically because we knew that what we were doing had a huge referral market in it. You know, parents standing at the school gates asking what, you know, James was doing this summer. Oh, he's going to ISSOS. What's that? You know, we created a handbag, essentially size leaflet that parents could give out. So yeah, I think working different nationalities is really interesting. It's really interesting what they want in terms of information. But definitely one thing that became very apparent to me at the very beginning was you've got to know your product, and you've got to know how to communicate that product in a number of different ways. And it is absolutely flabbergasting the amount of people set up a business who don't know what their product is, which always just absolutely bemuses me. I just don't understand it. And also we're dealing with people who have English as a second language. So thankfully, what we do has got to be kept really simple. And I always think that that's a really strange thing. You know, people selling, for example, mortgages. If I go to a mortgage broker, I have no idea what they're talking about because they're trying to dazzle me with all this fancy language. It's just like, just tell me what it does. And I think if you can tell people what you do simply and you can communicate that easily, then you're onto a winner. And actually having 80% of our clients have English as a second language, we have to communicate what we do very clearly and very simply, has really, really helped. And then I suppose there's the other side of it where we expanded to America, which was a learning curve all in itself. So we went from, you know, the nationalities that we work with to a different country that we were working with as a partner effectively. And that was interesting in itself.
Okay. And that was actually, I was going to actually ask if there was any particular challenges that you'd faced with trying to run a company that was operating across borders. I don't know if you wanted to expand on any further.
When we first opened in America, you could effectively just keep your British company and operate in America, but that meant that we couldn't take any staff across because you need a thing called a J1 visa to take staff across from the UK. And we knew we wanted to do that because we wanted it very much to be a Scottish summer school running in Yale.
Right.
So we registered an American company, which was okay. Now doing it is more difficult because of bank accounts, etc. We did it at the sort of prime time to do it. And then you've got the difficulty of politics, which we hadn't in any shape or form thought about. We opened when Obama was president. A year in, Trump got elected and nobody wanted to go to America. And so our sales just kind of went like that. But people forget very quickly, and very quickly it all sort of changed. But that wasn't something we'd ever taken into account. We were just like, America, people want to go, cool university, we've got this Ivy League university that we can work with, Yale, it's perfect for us, great. And then you've got the politics of a country, which is interesting, but it's definitely something that if you're expanding anywhere, no matter where it is, Europe, anywhere, you definitely have to think about. And then you've got everything else that goes along with that. So yeah, so that was interesting. And then there's other things which are quite boring, but like tax is different in America and you have to learn about that. And, I think with all of these things, you have to get really good advisors. So we've got great American lawyers, we've got really good American accountants, thankfully, because it is a minefield. It's so different. But yeah.
Always get some expert help in the country that you're going to be trying to operate in. Yeah,
yes.
Don't try and use a Scottish lawyer to navigate US law.
Exactly.
It's not going to work.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I just want to come on to actually, I suppose we're in 2020. I know that you had a particularly challenging, you definitely had a challenging year this year.
Yeah.
And your business has been affected by COVID. So could you just tell us a little bit about that? And maybe, and just what your response has been, if any.
Yeah, so we got to March we got to about February, actually, to be honest. And our applications, normally we take just over 620 students every year across all 3 summer schools. We got to February where we would normally be at about a good 500-600 students, and we were at 450. And I thought, this is interesting. And then we started getting phone calls from parents saying, this COVID thing, how are you going to stop it? Sorry? Because apparently we can do things like that. Like we can change the weather, it's incredible. Yeah. So it became a bit sort of concerning. We were getting these phone calls and we thought, right, there's nothing we can do at this moment in time. The world doesn't know what's happening. We'll see what happens. And then in March, obviously we had to shut down. We all started working from home. We didn't expect that was going to last as long as it did. And then we got into April and it got to a point where we thought we're going to have to start making some decisions here because the borders are shut effectively. And we've got students that are apparently coming here from over 80 nationalities and they currently can't book flights. So it became very apparent very, very quickly that certainly at that time, the UK was going to be a big issue. St Andrews University cancelled, we cancelled Cambridge, and then eventually Yale kind of followed suit. So once we did that, we then had to contact all the parents, tell them that we had cancelled. We managed to transfer a lot of students over to the following year,
right,
which was great. But yeah, it wasn't a particularly nice time sitting in your own flat, cancelling the thing that you work all year to do. But I think the biggest challenge, certainly for me, as the sort of managing director of the company, is making sure your staff are okay. You've got 6 full-time staff, and making sure that from a mental health standpoint, or just generally, that they were okay. And this was a situation which nobody had encountered before. People have worked from home before, but not in this way. And it was a case of saying, go for your walk whenever you want to go for your walk. Do whatever you need to do in order to keep sort of mind and body together, and we'll work it out. And then we very much got to sort of May, and we were like, what would you do as a summer school company when there's no summer schools to run? So put a lot of the girls on furlough, and we used the time to, we've got a huge storage unit, we've sorted things like that out. We very much were of the opinion that we had to market our way through it. So we wanted the students to still feel engaged and part of something. So we took the aspect of ISSOS, which is very different from other summer schools, which is the clan side of things, which is effectively like houses at school. And they've all got t-shirts. So we did online virtual clan cup. And that kept a lot of students engaged. We took the very conscious decision not to go online at that time. A lot of summer schools decided to go online. But again, we know our market very well. And I'm sitting there thinking, if I'm 16 and I've signed up for a summer school, an in-person summer school, and I've spent 3 months learning online, and come July, I can go sit by my swimming pool outside and hang out with my friends, I am not going to sit for 3 hours online to something that hasn't been refined and everyone's still trying to figure it out. So we just thought, pin it, leave it, let them have their summer, whatever summer that they can have. And then if we're going to do something, we'll do it really well. And we'll take the time to sort of figure that out. And we'll take all the mistakes that everybody else has made and we'll hopefully work on that. So that's effectively what we've done. And we're taking a few of our subjects online regardless. And we're using it as a way to expand the business and expand potentially some of the educational side of things that we do to get it out to a wider audience.
Okay.
As well as offer it in-person summer schools. So
Cool.
yeah, we've seen it as a bit of an opportunity. I think all of us have seen it as a bit of an opportunity to take a step back, I've sort of used it as a let's retrain my brain, let's get involved in all the things that you didn't have time to do. But yeah, I mean, certainly we are effectively an events company, and it came to a standstill, and it was just like, stop. And we're still trying to navigate it, but you've got to just do the best you can, really.
So it's looking ahead to next year and trying to be in the best position to offer whatever scenario, whatever you can offer next year. Understanding your product right now so that you can offer it best next year.
Totally, and I think you've got to use the time to, if financially you can, then great. We're in a fortunate position where we can, but I think an attitude definitely gets you through it. And I think having an incredibly supportive team, and also being a bit vulnerable with each other. I always say to the girls in the office, this is a safe place to come as you are every day. But I don't necessarily offer myself the same ability. And actually during this, I've gone, you can't do that every day. You can't be on top form every day. So there has been days where I've just been like, yeah, really struggling today, having a really crap day. And they're like, okay, cool, that's fine. So I think that has actually really helped. We've all become a bit more honest and a bit more vulnerable with each other in that sense. And just admitted that you're all human.
There's been a lot more focus towards, I've certainly seen it within my company, focus towards well-being and companies seeing it much more as their duty of care over their employees to keep their employees close to them through this period, so that we can all hopefully be successful again in the future. So glad to see that everyone at ISSOS is doing well as well. Good.
Oh yeah, they're still mad.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to actually just ask some more specific questions. So one thing I'm really interested in about ISSOS is, and I'll just put it out there for context. So we worked together last year. You actually hired myself and one of my colleagues at Young Enterprise to come across and deliver a business and enterprise business and enterprise course, or business
entrepreneurship.
And entrepreneurship. It is, yeah. So I always got it wrong. But you deliver a business and entrepreneurship program at ISSOS. You do it at the Cambridge campus and at the Yale campus, and it's one of your most popular programs, from what I believe. So I'm just interested in why you thought that was a particularly important program to include in the summer schools.
So when we opened in Cambridge, we wanted to offer slightly different academic choices than we did in St Andrews. And at the time, there was a lot of talk amongst students. They wanted to do economics and they all wanted to go into business. Now, to me, I couldn't for a second begin to look at an economics course. So I thought, no, that's not really exciting. And one of the things that, for me personally, I find really exciting is entrepreneurship. And regardless, it is a sexy title. Everybody loves the sort of idea of entrepreneurship, whether they want to run a business or not. But also because I think, me personally, and as a business, we believe that the entrepreneurial mindset has got so much to offer, regardless of whether you run a business or not. That ability to see opportunity in life. And I think that ability to expose some of these students, age 13 to 18 from all over the world, to that idea that business can be done for good, and looking at social entrepreneurship, but also looking at business as a way to solve some of the world's biggest problems. And some of them come from a really good background in terms of their ship has landed in a fairly good place. So why don't you use it to do something really good in the world? And if we can offer you that education and that kind of way of thinking, then I think it's really, really important. So I think it's an easy subject to market because parents love the idea of their son and daughter learning about some really different companies and good companies, and some of their parents work for those companies as well. And for the kids, it's not an education that they get in mainstream school. And I think doing something a bit different, being able to offer them that entrepreneurial mindset, whether they then go on and set up their own business or not, doesn't really matter, but definitely offering them, and we hopefully do this with all the academics, that kind of art of possibility. You can do anything that you want if you put your mind to it. And I also think the really nice thing about entrepreneurship is you get that ability to teach them about failure, which we don't teach in schools really. So you get to do that through entrepreneurship, and they suddenly aren't fearful of it. So I think it's a really important subject to teach, but I think it also offers a lot of opportunity as to the different areas that you can teach about. And there's some really cool companies that you can introduce them to that they didn't necessarily know about. And they're not all huge worldwide companies. Some of them, as you know, that we teach about are local Scottish companies. Some of them are just small American companies, but they haven't heard about them before. And they kind of go, well, that's really cool. So yeah, I think it's a really important education to offer, because we're not offered it in school. And I think it's really important to be able to apply to different aspects of life. Cool.
Thanks. And so you were talking there about the entrepreneurial mindset, actually. And so a lot of what you were talking there actually rings true within my role at Bridge to Business and what we do at Young Enterprise Scotland. We believe, the entrepreneurial mindset doesn't just help you in business, but actually it's useful in all areas of education. And that's actually what, I suppose that's how we see ourselves. That's what we see our jobs as within Scotland, is trying to prove that to the education sector and also the government, that yes, enterprise should be embedded in all areas, because
absolutely,
whether you're going to go and learn to sell a product and try and do it to make money, it's actually that process of just seeing a project through to the end, having a failure, but then picking yourself back up and going with it, which as you said, no other subject lets you get a C and then goes, but well done with that C.
Absolutely.
No, you've got to get to an A. Whereas with business and entrepreneurship, C's fine as long as you can sell it.
Absolutely.
Cool. So, and I just wanted to just ask then, so if you do see it so important, what do you think, what would you say then are some really important skills for young people to be trying to build now then, in the next couple of months or maybe the next year or so, that would help them have a good chance within entrepreneurship?
So I think one of the things, and I think this is potentially something that's come out of COVID, but is something that is massively needed in the world anyway, is to think differently. I think we have very linear thinking, and I don't think we give ourselves I don't think we either give ourselves the opportunity or we don't dare ourselves to think differently. And I'm only probably in the last sort of 6 years have been kind of realized that I've got this superpower, which is I'm dyslexic, and it gives me the ability to think differently. And I didn't realize that. And I think the more we engage in that ability to think outside the box, the better. And I know it's a trite phrase that everybody uses, but I do think it is genuinely something that will help change a lot of businesses. I think being adaptable, having that ability to change is really important. I think it's important for young people generally. I think it's important for people generally. And I think one of the things that the last few months has taught us is there's a lot of people that are not willing to change. And if you're not willing to change, you're just going to be stagnant, and you've got to adapt. I think the biggest thing is courage. I think you've just got to have that kind of attitude of just give it a go, and stop thinking that, the person over here who's got this massive business knows it all. They don't. It's like when you look at your parents, when I was younger, I used to think my mum and dad knew everything, and suddenly you got to a point where you became an adult and you suddenly knew everything. And then I just kind of got a bit older and realized that they're just big kids in older bodies, and they don't really know anymore. And everybody's really just trying to do the best they can with the knowledge that they've got. And I think if you accept that, then every person and every kid in the world has got already got the ability, the passion and the drive to do everything that they want to do, no matter where they're from. And it's kind of just having that belief to go and do it.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that potentially coronavirus has also taught me is there was a point in the 3 months of lockdown where I thought, if I continue to think really negatively, that is exactly what is going to happen. How the hell did you get to where you are? Oh, you got here by thinking really positively and actually, you know, doing things like visualizing yourself talking to a room of 1,000 people. Oh, that happened. Okay, so Jen, let's take everything you've learned and stop unlearning it, and stick to it. Yeah, and I think, for me, I think courage is a big thing, because I think we do live in quite a fearful world, and I think a lot of young people live in a lot of fear. But courage, definitely being adaptable and think differently, but having confidence in that difference, you know.
I liked what you said there. I mean, you said about thinking differently, but then you even also talked about how you flipped your own perspective of your dyslexia. Like that was you must have saw it as a challenge and a barrier, and then one day, actually no,
I don't know if I ever saw it as a challenge. Possibly a challenge. I think when I was at school, so when I was told I was dyslexic in junior 4, and when my mum and dad were told I was dyslexic, my dad literally sat in front of the teacher and went, "Dyslexic? She's never had a fit." My mum went, "What?" My dad went, my mum went, "Not epileptic, Robert, she's dyslexic." But weirdly, it was at that point that my dad realised he was dyslexic.
Right, okay.
He thought he was stupid all of his life, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so he realised he was dyslexic, and I was not epileptic, but dyslexic. And it was dealt with really, really well. And my own dad very much brought me up. It's not an excuse. It doesn't mean that you can't do anything. It just means that you see things differently. Fine. Not necessarily always the attitude of other people that, you know, you're around. And I think I got to about 30 and genuinely thought I wasn't very bright, because academically I am not particularly brilliant. And what I realised was my intelligence was totally different. I was more socially intelligent. I was intelligent, emotionally intelligent, and suddenly was like, oh, right, okay. And I was running a business at this point. So I thought, okay, I can't really be that stupid. So, and I think it's something that at the age of 30, I really started engaging with more, to realise what dyslexia actually offered, and realised it really was quite a superpower, and that you do see the world slightly differently. But I just thought that was the way that everybody saw it. I didn't realise it was different in that sense. And so I think over the last sort of 10 years, I've become slightly more kind of like, actually, let's talk about this and tell kids about this, because I think there's a lot of kids out there who are dyslexic or have a learning difficulty, anything like that, who think that they don't have as much ability as anyone else. And you're like, hold on, Richard Branson's dyslexic. You know, there's hundreds of people who have done exceptionally well who are dyslexic. And there's a phenomenal charity called Made by Dyslexia, who promote all of these, a lot of famous people who are dyslexic, and how they think differently. And a lot of people started putting it on their LinkedIn as a skill set, dyslexic thinking. So I was like, that's quite cool.
As a badge of honor kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
Quite cool, yeah.
I mean, yeah, because because you were mentioning about straightforward thinking, and what I was thinking when you were talking about thinking differently was actually the concept and the model of lateral thinking that people actually go and try and learn, but you've kind of got an innate ability to do that, ability to do that lateral thinking. Whereas I had to sit in lessons every Thursday morning at university where someone tried to read pages from an Edward de Bono book on lateral thinking. And I was like, wow. Okay. So actually, everyone is going to have some kind of superpower within them. They might not realize it till they're 30.
Wait, do you know, and it was funny, it was a friend of mine, and this is when I was about 30, said, what's your superpower? And I went, I don't know. And she said, really? And I went, I have no idea. And this had nothing to do with dyslexia. And I said, I don't know. And she said, do you not see that you see things really simply? And I was like, what? And actually, it wasn't until I sort of sat down to have a conversation with myself, I realized growing up, I never thought I had the ability to see things any other way because I didn't think I was that bright. So, you know, it was kind of like, what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to put that football in that goal. Well, then I'll just put the football in the goal. Whereas everybody else would explain how you would get the ball up to the goal and how I don't care about that. Just go.
Yeah.
And then I realized that's exactly how I ran my business. What is the end goal? How are we getting there? We'll figure it out. It's fine. And then I looked at actually the way that the business is run, the marketing, everything about it. And it's all just, it's simple.
It's goal orientated.
Totally. Yeah. So I think that potentially is a superpower that I didn't realize came from that, but that somebody else, I suppose, recognized. So yeah, everybody's got a superpower. I suppose it's just figuring out what it is and then using it.
I really like that. I'm gonna put that to future classes. What is your superpower? Because
what is your superpower? I know
it will be there somewhere.
Oh yeah, totally.
Awesome. Right. I think we'll wrap it up on that one then, Jen.
Okay.
So thank you very much for your time today. What I want to do, just as a quick thank you, is just give you an opportunity to just tell us a little bit more about where we can find out about ISSOS. If people want to, we're not jumping onto summer school bookings right this moment, but if you want to tell our audience where we can find your website and your Facebook and things, that would be great.
So if you want to find out more about ISSOS, you can go to issos.com. We're just redoing our website, which should be out in November. And also Facebook. We're also on Instagram. And we're also on Twitter. And I suppose if you're ever looking to work at a summer school, which is probably more appropriate than going to a summer school at the age that you probably are, then we have a plethora of really fun, really good summer jobs that last anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 weeks.
Cool. And I can vouch for those because I took one of those jobs last year and it was awesome. So I can definitely vouch for that. Right. Thank you so much for your time, Jen.
Pleasure.
And have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Cool. Hopefully see you soon.
Okay.